Good evening. Thank you for having me. Obviously, I'm going to talk about testing, but it's a good thing. I had the pleasure to very early in my career work with Ruby, and one thing that was kind of like very early a key takeaway was Ruby and testing, they belong together. You kind of like 20 years ago, Ruby folks were into testing, where other people were still looking at and say like, yeah, from time to time I write some thing or thought like testing is clicking around somewhere in the browser, you know. And Ruby has taught me testing. Ruby has shown me there's a lot of advantage whenever I do testing. And I came up with rules for myself to like anything I touch, I write the test. Just one to get started. Which is weird because sometimes you break your own rules, and every time I did so, I figured out, okay, something is going south. Something was no longer working. I found myself, I will be much, much more productive if I have just one test. So this is usually something like my micro test suite. If I just write a script, if I have a bash script and I just want to see if it works, I know I will have some kind of restart. Most of the time I will have some output. If I don't have an output, why just not put something in there to print something so you see the progress of what you're doing. You see if you break something. This is just some Unix tooling put together. So there's this diff tool that is on any Unix system available, and it compares two files. Here I just use the output of the script. It's this little trick to just directly give it a style of a file, and I have an expected output as a file. I compare. The nice thing with diff is if the two files are the same, you get a positive result, otherwise you get an error, and I have something that I can run and see if I mess something up. For sure, this is just a starter. Usually, it very quickly gets much more complex, and you have more fine-grained things that you want to take care of. For instance, what if the expected output has a new line at the end and the script doesn't? You already failed, but it's not really failing. For sure, I switch to Ruby. Like whenever I'm doing anything in a script and I figure, okay, I would need some logic, I immediately move scripting in Bash and other kind of like weird scripting languages away, and I choose something that is more helpful in that. So I switch to Ruby. Here, same thing. I execute the script, I read the expected output, I compare them, but both of them I use strip to remove the white spaces. Very easy, but that brings me improved adaptability. So I can extend, I can bring in more test cases, everything in one very easy script. And for me, it's something whenever I'm working on such a thing, I have it in my mind that I continuously want it running. That's something I just got used to a lot. For instance, I want to see like if I make one change, I want to get immediately feedback. You can achieve such things again using Unix tool. There's a tool called iNotify_wait, which is also available on any Unix tool. It has this syntax of, hey, this event of close write means like the file has been saved. Then you can watch a specific file. In this case, it's app model user, so it might be some Railish code. And then I clear the screen, I give some output, and then I run a test for this specific file. One thing to notice here is I have my editor configured, so whenever I press enter, I save the file. So I save files a lot, and I get a lot of feedback, which is cool. Again, Ruby has you covered. This is a gem from the Stone Age. It's Guard, and Guard, that's exactly the same thing. I think even Guard might use iNotify_wait under the hood because it's available. Anyhow, Guard is a Ruby gem that you can install, obviously in your project in development or test group. And Guard works like this. You create an init file. You run init and it creates a Guard file. The Guard file is kind of rule set for how changes should be interpreted. And then you start bundle exec Guard, and Guard is listening on your files. This is how the Guard file looks like. It's tiny, but it needs to be tiny because it's complex. This demonstrates its best, but we can go through the file. I think it's most easy to read it upside down. The top, let's just ignore it. It's just some starter. There's a group for front-end testing, a group for back-end testing. Let's ignore this as well. We see here that it's using RSpec. Okay, it's set up for an RSpec test suite, and watch defines kind of like regular expression that should be interpreted, and it's going from top to bottom. So whenever one rule gives a positive result, then it gets the job. So it's better to read it from the bottom because this is the default rules that will be applied. So the default rule in the very lowest line is a regular expression. Whenever something is in the lib folder, then there is a spec lib folder with the same path and same file name, and then run this. Means like whenever I save something in the lib directory, it will get executed in the spec lib directory. Then there is app directory, which is spec without the app, and so on. So it has a bunch of rules. One interesting I find in the second line, this is obviously Rails again. The second line says like app controllers, application controller, execute all spec controllers, which means like run all tests for all controllers because we've changed the base controller, which is cool because now I can set up rules. I know my application and I can say, oh, but I have a second application controller, which is a bad thing. You shouldn't do this, but you can configure Guard to use this. I have one problem with this approach. As soon as you work with multiple people, you work in a team, some people might not use Guard because they have some different IDE, which means they won't maintain your file. And if they do something that doesn't match in here, then your file breaks, and it's up to you to fix it. Other than this, I also find it quite complex and complicated to set up. So over time, I used Guard for some time, but I went back to file watchers. For sure, the iNotify wait is something I didn't use because it was 2 slides ago, but I cannot remember the exact syntax. So I needed an alternative. I'm using now a tool called Enter because this is one of the there are many of them, but this is one where I can remember how it works. And I don't want to kind of like learn how a file watcher works. It works like this. You forward all files that you want to watch, kind of like as a string, as an argument. You pipe it into the tool, and then you describe the command that you want to run. So in this case, we are forwarding app models user. It will watch app models user. And whenever it changes, it will run bundle exec RSpec and the test. That's cool. You can forward more files, so it watches more files. I use find here to find all Ruby files, forward it, and I run the test suite whenever something changes. Cool thing. I really like this. I use this all the time. I even use this when writing presentations for a talk because then I can render a PDF and okay, that's a nice thing, but like I know some of you will say like, okay, you save a file and then run the full test suite. Cool. Ruby is fast. We can do this, but unfortunately the test suite might not be fast. There are good ways to optimize the test suite, but it's just not efficient. You just don't want to run your full test suite. That was something that I'm constantly was trying to figure out the solution for it. And I think I found some, and that's what I want to show to you. I wrote a Ruby gem that is called test map. And test map is mapping everything in your test suite to the actual files that get executed. And it also creates a cache of kind of like the current state of your files. And so it recognizes whenever a file changed. Sounds pretty simple, but let's see it in action. I always try to make it as simple as possible. So I don't want to have an init or anything like that. I just want to add it to my bundler, to my project. So I bundle add test map to the test group. Then I need to require it in the test helper. Depends on how your project is set up. And then in this case, it's mini test. So I run bundle exec rake. The default is on the test suite. Runs my tests, cool. I run it again, and it skips all my tests. That's exactly what my gem does. Which is and it took me a very long time to build this. And I even tried a lot of different approaches, and this one is the best. This happens if I write anything to a file. If I change one file, and I run the test suite again, it runs only the tests for this specific file. The thing is, I don't use a guard file. That's the main new feature here. What I'm doing is like mapping the tests. How does this work? There are some approaches that you can use, not too many. Cool thing, Ruby got us covered with a very powerful tool. In its core library, it shares something that is called tracepoint. It's a class that you can use that just gives you basically the stack trace of what happened. And you can use tracepoint to just enable it and disable it in a piece of code that you want to look at. That's exactly what I wrapped around. But if you get a stack trace is huge. Like there are a lot of things in there. So you need to figure out which files are the ones that you actually want to look into. That's wrapped inside my file recorder of the test map. So what I'm doing here is, first of all, I require a test map for sure. Then I load some sample because I want to demonstrate how it works. Sample is just a class that you can instantiate, and then you can run a method hello. It gives you hello world. And then I get an instance of my recorder, and I use a trace method and provide it with a block. And anything that I run inside the block, it will record. Well, obviously, a file recorder should exactly do this. And you can watch the results with rec results. In this case, it was only one, luckily. I take this and I take this approach and I enable and disable it for every test that I'm running. And when I'm doing so, it comes up with a map. And this map basically tells me, like, whenever I run a specific test, then these files are involved. What I'm doing then is just inverting this map, because I want it the other way around. I want to look at files, and all these files are associated with specific tests. In my example, I used 3 classes, cats and dogs. And cats and dogs are obviously animals, so they inherit animal. And you can see when I'm running or when I'm making a change to cat, then cat only has one test file. Dog has only one test file, but the animal is a base class, so it has more. For sure, this can get very complex, and that's exactly what I tried to solve here with tracepoint. The second thing that it does, it keeps a map of all the files that I have in my project, and it calculates a hash, so I know this is the current state of the file. And whenever I changes, the hash changes. For sure, that's a bit of an overhead, because even if you just change a command, then it still will change, but that's fast, and I just wanted to keep it simple and having fast. And if you change a comment, maybe you break something in your test suite. Why not running it? For sure, I also want to show it. So let's have a look. I didn't prepare too much of an example, so I take just the test map gem itself. We can run a test suite because for some reason I also activated it here, which absolutely doesn't make sense, but it's still fun. We've seen the example with the filter. So I think, because I have a filter here. So let's just change it. Let's first of all look into the test map file. So we have it. I said it creates a map. It creates a cache. This is how the map looks like. So we have the different files and the associated tests. You can see something like config. Config is used a lot in different, but it doesn't include all the files. It's just in some, and that's exactly what I want to record. The other thing is the test cache. That's all the files with the hashes. We are in a clear state, so let's change the filter. Just changing something in the comment, so I don't need to fix the tests. And you see it's only running the tests associated with this. One thing, we are no longer in a clear state, because we know the test was positive. It didn't fail. If the test failed, nothing would have changed. But now we run a test suite and everything was successful, which means we can cache again. That's why the test cache updated. And if I run bundle rake again, everything is fine again. Cool. It's just updated again, and now the state is back to as nothing changed because I just reverted the change on the file. We can also look in the examples. Let's pick aspect this time, and this is my animals and cats and dogs example. So I have an animal. Animal has one method that says speak. I have some tests for this for sure, because you want to make sure that your cats are not going crazy. So I need to go to the examples. Aspect for sure has a much not so nice output here. I think I also put a break. Yes, yeah. So here I even shared like a command that test map cached. So everything is cached. We have 6 examples. 0 failures, nothing pending. If we change something for the cat, let's change the comment again. Then it will run. Didn't it run?
I did 2, no? For pending. Yeah.
It ran some. And then it added, I have the verbose output here, so I see what's happening. So it added it ran it, and it added the cat spec to the test map again. So I should also see the state. Yeah, the test cache shows that the cat class has changed. That's it basically. For sure, I also tried this in practice on a real test suite. This is my result that I had, which is I used a Rails application with 500 test files. Has about 10K assertions in it. It's a slow test suite. It takes 6 minutes. So it's 350 seconds without the test map. When using test map first time, it takes a very long time because there's like the traces are very long for such a test suite. That means there's a lot of cleaning up, filtering. That makes it very, very slow for just generating the initial run for the map and the cache. But afterward, it got pretty fast, 5 times faster, which is still not where I want to be, because I want to run the test suite all the time, and I'm pretty convinced it will work. The only problem that still is happening here is that some of the tests have setup processes, and what I'm doing is skipping. So instead of skipping, it would be good not just skipping the test file, the tests individually, but skipping the whole test file if you see there's no change and you don't need to step into each. This way you would just avoid the setup. And then I hope it would be somewhere in 2-3 seconds maybe. Because as I said, Ruby is fast. And if you do nothing, Ruby is super fast. That also brings me to my conclusion. I think this has a lot of potential because I tried to search for quite some time, how can I optimize that I figure out which test file to run whenever I change something, and I want to continuously run it. And I see also this has a lot of potential in various areas. If you need to be fast, if you need to verify just specific changes, you know that your test suite is successful. If it was one time successful, record it and keep it away. For sure, you might have flaky tests and you might have some, I don't know, dependencies on third parties. Then you are anyways doing something wrong in your test suite. It should be deterministic and it should stay sane all the time. So if you one time the result was positive, keep that, keep it in a cache. One nice thing with the cache is it's very handy in CI because you can just pick that one cache and move it around and just utilize it. And also you can, because you have the flexibility of the cache file, you can even say like, okay, I want to, when I have a pull request or merge request, I want to run only the change files, but then before I release, run everything because you just clean up the cache. That's it. If you need any questions, I got some prepared.
Yes, I'll take two. One of first of all, I just checked. Jesus, so I found the gem.
Yes.
When I started, literally when I started, like 2019. It's now 6 years, 8 years, something unminted. Last commit 6 years ago. Last significant commit 8 years ago. Amazing. 300,000 GitHub. I was like, when I found that, I was like, holy shit, why doesn't everyone use it? Okay, why does it not work?
I think I tried the same approaches. If you just don't know Crystal Ball, it's a gem from 2015, so it's quite a long time ago. GitLab got it forked, and they maintained it at least 4 months ago, so they might still somehow use it. It's a very, very nice concept. It originated from Aaron Patterson. He wrote the blog post, said like, this is kind of like regression testing, selective regression testing. You have a chain, or you want to predict which tests do I need to execute if I change that file. What they did, like the name says it, they tried to figure out which file will it be. So they came up with, because a lot of times you can guess it. Like guard file does, but just having a general version of guard file. And I was also like going in this direction and figuring out it just doesn't work, until up to the point where I said like, why the hell don't I run everything and just try to figure out what changed, because I know everything resulted in first place. So, and also Crystal Ball got really, really complex. And I also, when I started, pretty soon things got complex. I threw everything away, started from scratch. I wanted to have it simple. And the current gem has 300 lines of code, something like that. So that's an amount you can easily work with and base such a thing.
Nice.
That's kind of like the difference. So it's a different approach. It's not guessing what changed, it's knowing what changed and running everything.
Thank you.
I'm afraid I'm not too familiar with the Ruby ecosystem, so nothing of this rings a bell. But I guess my question ties into the second to last point. Could you increase the granularity by actually building up not on a file level, but on a method level, the entire code base it covers to be even more granular?
You can, but that's exactly again something that I wouldn't try, because I was exploring this and thinking like, okay, I can only skip the methods that are the test methods that I don't need. But like Ruby is magically, you can generate test cases. I hope no one is doing that. That's something very awful. The problem is if I have a test file, then I'm pretty sure that all the files that get executed in code are somehow related with the test file. That means whenever I'm changing something, I'm pretty surely want to run all the tests of this file. And just like I tried to do that trick with running the tests, and it got very, very complex very soon. And just taking the file is so easy. It's so much. It's narrowing everything down. Even just coming up with a map that maps like one piece of code in the tests to something else. Nothing that must change. If the line numbers change, I need to remember something. It's tricky. It gets tricky. But file, simple. You've seen the test map and the test cache. It's readable. You can look at it and you understand how the project is structured.
Yeah, right. Otherwise, we'll build your own code coverage tool.
Yes. Trace coverage is also in the Ruby standard library. You can also use that. TracePoint has some small advantages because it's more exact. Coverage, however, is much faster. So you could replace the one with the other as well. Work pretty much the same. Yeah.
Yeah. When you showed that running it the first time with a big Greece code base.
Yeah.
So what was the slow part?
I didn't do too much profiling on that. That's unfortunate. Like I know that the test base has setups, which also something that, for instance, in Aspect you wouldn't. You would try to avoid having setups and lazy load everything. You can do the same in Minitest. I think that's a good practice because every time you have a big setup block.
But the first run,
yeah.
What made the first run so slow?
The test suit is slow. The gray one.
Yeah.
Yeah, the test suit is slow.
Oh, the red ones.
The red, yeah.
The red.
Part of your code makes it slow.
Yeah, the hash calculation, definitely the test mapping. The file recorder is pretty slow. Trace points create a huge amount of information. That's why I had this sample thingy here. Because if you don't use file recorder but just trace point, you even see a lag in printing the output because it's so large. Like there's all information of all gems. There's information of everything that gets visited up to the point where you reach the code class. And I filled everything. And that's for sure. That's taking a time. Then also maintaining the map, moving it back and forth. That's likely also taking some time. But it would be very nice to go deep on this and maybe optimize something.
You could optimize the output basically, like not recording everything, but just the stuff that you are interested in, dump the rest. Like hit the source, dump the rest.
Cool. One more?
Maybe one more question. If you add files, add files, you're doomed actually, because
no, because you run the full test.
Yeah, then you need to run the full test.
If you add a file, a code file, you have no tests. You cannot run them. If you add a test file, it gets picked up by the test, also by the test suite. We can run this. It basically just gets picked up and it runs, and then it gets added to the test cache and to the test map. It's kind of like very dynamic. If you change your code that it uses different classes, it just updates itself. That's why. But I didn't plan it like that. It just worked like that. I'm super happy that it worked like that.
Cool.
Thank you.